And so we make space for magic. We make space for reality by turning towards it. In a way, we let the light and the love and the glory of reality shatter us, leave us in a depth of silence and awe and wonder. We watch as the glory of God opens inside us, opens inside the heart, as we say yes, that the glory takes up residence in the heart, in the whole sense of being, that we're filled with the fullness and the wholeness of the glory of the light. We discover that everything that we've longed for is inside, and somehow we've known it all along. There have been times where we haven't dared to really be in the revelation because the surface of life can feel so sticky. And yet it's all about turning to the revelation, turning to the reality that actually dissolves the play of my life, dissolves the sense of cause and effect, draws us projection by projection out of the karmic system. The mind can have so much fear about what I might lose if I really open to this glory. But of course, nothing is lost that is truly meaningful. It's just the way of fear to be afraid of itself. It's like that idea of being afraid of what's under the bed, or being afraid of what's in the cupboard, and then you look and there's nothing there. But how fearful and terrifying it can be to just imagine. And it's so much the way that fear and living in the fear frequency works, that we're just generating fear about what we're afraid of, because we're attached to the karmic system and the past, and we believe in cause and effect, and we believe that there's something wrong with me and I've done something wrong, so therefore something bad is going to happen to me because God is punishing, and I'm going to be punished for what is wrong and bad with me. And of course, until we illuminate that there's nothing under the bed, there's nothing in the closet, there's no boogeyman, right? It's just a whole mental affliction. The whole frequency of fear just continues to generate itself. And so we want to have an awareness. Where are we broadcasting from? Where are we creating from? Are we creating from that frequency of fear? Because then that self-perpetuating idea can then say, oh, well, I knew that was going to happen, and now here it is. But there's the power of the mind to create. And here's the invitation to not give words to not give words to anything that we don't actually want to manifest. So we don't give words to our fears in a way. We don't energize the fears. It's very different to energize the fears with identification and then create them, as opposed to being aware of the fear. Because once awareness is aware of the fear, it's offering that discordant pattern to come to love. It's being held in a wider, spacious openness and receptivity. And so we want to have an awareness about the way that we speak, what we really give our attention to, the thoughts that we can invest in that are are not actually what we want to be living and what we want to create. We open to receive the instructions that are already wired within us. We open to the heart sankalpa. What is the invitation of this life? What does the heart already know about the adventure of this life? Because it's already here, and it's about daring to energize what the heart already knows about this life, to give fire and power and light to what the heart already knows about the adventure of this life, without fearing, revealing to yourself in utter radical honesty what this heart is about for you. What are you longing for? What is important to you? What brings you alive? And it doesn't have to be, of course, exact details. We're not speaking about manifesting and making dream boards. We're speaking about actually opening to intuitively receive the divine instructions that are already wired into us, into our laws of nature. It's about daring to really feel into what's possible. We can't actually feel into what's possible with the mind, because the mind is limited, and the mind will always say, well, I have a feeling about something marvelous and magical. And the mind will say, yeah, but that's not possible because I'm too old, or because I'm not well enough, or because I don't have enough funds, or because just good things like that just don't happen to me, right? But it's, if we feel it in the field, then it's there in the infinite field of possibilities. And it's just about energizing on the level of frequency, as opposed to on the level of mind and idea of this is what I want as a me. It's really just energizing and bringing alive the heart sankalpa, the divine instructions. And even if it doesn't feel fully formed, it's to energize it and let that wisdom light that is wired into us come forward. To really live this life as an adventure is profoundly magical. When we're not in fear, we can really enjoy the living of this life. We can really allow the radiance of the heart to shine. We can actually be true. We can see and be seen. We can open to a depth of natural worthiness, of beauty and glory and love in this life, in ways that we can't even begin to imagine. We're so habituated to be in that frequency of fear and that frequency of there's something wrong with me, or I've done something wrong. And even on the subtlest levels, this can prevail as we open to true nature, and we really do know the glory and the beauty and the field of the oneself. There can still be these residues. And in a way, it's about opening to the possibility of really clearing these residues, really illuminating and allowing the field of the unconscious that can play as protections and conditionings and hold us back as glass ceilings, and just a feeling of not fully thriving in the fullest way, instead of really feeling like just a vital flow, a vital current of life living itself, spontaneous and free, never knowing what is coming next, but being this field of wide openness that's just open to the adventure, open to the exploration, and deeply and profoundly open to exploring the landscape of your own consciousness as the landscape of consciousness. To know that we're wired to know the fullness of divinity. We're actually completely wired, set up, coded because we already are that, and we are able to discover that. And that's the adventure. We're able to discover what has been pointed to by mystics and seers, but we are living at an evolutionary edge where what is possible hasn't happened yet, because it's all happening here now. And that's the glory, is that here now we are the living radiance of the evolution of human consciousness. The lived experience feels to be a personal one, but it's actually an impersonal evolution of human consciousness. And what we are is a living process. And the living process is one field, and we're a part of that field, absolutely. And at the same time, we are deeply wired in the knowing of what is true. We're a living intelligence, that is like threads and fibers and codes of light, dancing and moving intelligently. There's an incredible organization in the functioning of the laws of nature. And so then too is there the same intelligence moving the laws of karma. And the laws of karma are not some kind of sign that we've done something wrong, that we're moving in karmic resonance, but the laws of karma are actually a system of intelligence that that is coded to set us free. We're coded and wired to free ourselves from the karmic system through acting out those seeds that we're carrying, the thing, all the stuff that we've got in our suitcases when we arrive as a fresh little baby. What we bring with us is the possibility of using this human life to see through the karmic system, and maybe this time see through it deeply enough that we can actually live unentangled and be a force for change. Now that's an incredibly profound thing, because as we actually truly open up and allow God to reveal in the heart the glory of divine, perfect, spotless love, to reveal in the heart, then the living of life becomes a glorification of God. It becomes a manifesting of heaven on earth. And as there's a manifesting of heaven on earth at the frequency level, it's as if the whole frequency of fear and the world is swallowed into the frequency of the heaven light, right? And so the whole play of living through what we're here to live through is that if we free ourselves from the karmic system, that then we're living as a resonant frequency field, as a transmission field that is a force for change, but not a force for change in the way that the human condition would like, but it's a total paradigm shift of everything that we've ever known, out of the karmic system, out of the dream of separation, and really to manifest and express as the frequency of living reality, as the divine reality. And so how glorious. And as these words are coming, just to notice that your heart knows this, right? Your heart Sankalpa, on some level, whatever flavor the heart Sankalpa has and your unique divine instructions are, your heart recognizes this truth. It does. It knows, and it's inspiring and enlivening, because it's the flow of true creative intelligence. That creative intelligence isn't only to create the illusion of separation and the reflection of our dysfunction and discordance. It's here to create the appearance of reality. It's here to create and manifest the living divine reality. And that's what we are here for. That's what we're here for. And how far that will go and how much of that we will see in our lived human life while the body is still being animated doesn't really matter, because we're part of a whole, a continuum. And ultimately, as we open to the divine reality, we're opening to the infinite eternal nature, the truth of who and what we are. We're opening to our immortal nature, and we realize that the life that we are doesn't actually die. Even if the human body disappears, it's really the experience is being pulled back into the unmanifest, out of the manifest and back into the unmanifest. And as we're pulled back into the unmanifest, we don't lose anything. We could say we lose the burden of the body. but as long as we have a body, we allow the body to be a vehicle, an instrument of the divine. And whether that's that we're living through the karmas and meeting and transmuting on whatever level, wherever we are in this unfolding, absolutely every moment is a moment of grace. And it's truly about living the fullness of your exact soul unfolding. Because the more aligned and true you are, and the more you are receiving the divine instructions and living in alignment, the more grace and magic you will feel and create on the surface of life for yourself and the whole field. And the more, just the more aligned and radiant and beautiful you will feel as a shining field of transmission and light and blessing and activation. That in this we then live on the surface of life as a field that isn't differentiating, is this mine, is this someone else's, is this the collective? We just receive and transmute the field. We're just so open to the field and so willing to receive, no resistance, that it's just an oceanic flow of intelligence refining itself and purifying itself. And so in that, we want for the body to be the most profound and healthy vehicle that it can be, because if the body has issues, it will create distraction. It will create distraction. And yet at the same time, as we open the whole intelligence, as it wants to use us as an instrument, it will rejuvenate and refine the body. And sometimes the process of the body being refined can actually feel like quite a challenging process, because the refinement process is a purifying and a releasing, like a deep cleansing process. It's a process of detoxifying the ama and really deeply digesting everything that we've never really before been able to digest, and all that's kind of hanging around as toxic waste on all the different dimensions of living. And so the purification process, as we really open to receive the glory of God, is a deeply purifying and detoxifying process. And it will work on the level of the physical, and it will work on the level of the mental, emotional, and clearing all that keeps us bound and conditioned and protected. And we are divinely guided as to, in a way we could say, how to live. That the divine instructions are here. And it's always about simplicity. And it's always about aligning with nature, right? It's all incredibly simple. And it's as simple as aligning with nature. And we could say one of the great questions that often comes is, well, what should I eat? What should I eat to be healthy and well and spiritually aligned and all of that good stuff? And of course, there's so many ideas out there that are all just created out of fear and the whole imbalance of power, trying to get us to buy a lot of things that we don't need. But when we actually align with nature, and we just use this as an example, we discover that we have all the intelligence at hand. And what we eat seasonal food, right? We know this stuff. When do we eat? We eat when we're hungry. We don't eat when we're not hungry, right? Wow. Wow, amazing, eh? But how often do we eat when we're not hungry, right? That's the frequency of fear telling us, fill your boots, right? Scarcity, or whatever it is, right? Comfort, avoidance, numbing. So we eat when we're hungry. We eat seasonal food. We get up with the light and we go to sleep when the light goes to sleep, right? We rest. It's all so simple when we align with nature. We eat what is needed just to fill the belly, but not overfill it, right? We don't need to stuff it with those big, oversized portions. We just eat enough so that we're satiated, so that there's enough space in the stomach to actually process and digest the food. And of course, what we're speaking of here is a complete reflection to everything in life, how we digest everything. Everything, absolutely everything. And we don't eat again until the stomach is fully digested and empty. We go to bed with an empty stomach. We go to bed with nothing resting in it, because if there's something resting in the stomach when we go to bed, it will putrefy overnight and it will create toxins in the body that will have you wake up feeling foggy, right? The system is very, very simple and yet very refined. And it's about following the simplicity of nature. It's incredibly simple, and yet we've been overlaid with all of these ideas, all the things that we need, and from fear and scarcity, taking too much of everything, taking in too much, buying too much, hoarding, addicted to ordering things on Amazon. Right? There are people that fill up garages with stuff that they order on Amazon. Wow, right? And so again, keep the life simple. Keep the life, only have what you need. If you haven't used it in the last 6 months, get rid of it. Get rid of it. You're never going to use it. Hanging on like, oh, I might need it one day when. Just notice the scarcity, right? Just go and buy it if you need another one. Doesn't matter. That may not make sense to the mind that's bound in scarcity. But it's so easy just to be so burdened in life with so much stuff and just constantly just layering on. And so it's like we're shrouding our capacity to be simple and free and light, so that we're kind of dragging ourselves through life instead of bouncing through life like a newly born deer, right? we're kind of just dragging the suitcase, a couple of van loads of stuff that we don't want to let go of. But the reality is like, how much can you actually use? Like what can you actually, make use of? It's amazing how we fill the life, fill the space, fill the space, fill the space. Don't let me be empty. Don't let me be empty, right? That frequency of greed, the frequency of lust, right? Just keep filling the space, filling the space. But the great invitation is to empty, because when we empty, when we feel empty, we feel light, we feel open, we feel healthy, we feel well, we feel free. And we're also open and spacious to be filled with the glory of God. We're open and spacious to be filled with the glory of God. We feel well. We feel good, right? Do I deserve to feel good? Have I got an unconscious commitment to not feeling good? What was the tribal consciousness of the family? Did I take something on that tells me to just eat as much as you can whenever you can? Just fill your boots, your pockets and everything, right? Is it all about trying to just hoard everything? And of course, if that's the mentality, then we're going to be hoarding emotional baggage as well. We're going to not be fully digesting everything that arises. And so how that translates into receiving life and digesting life is that when we live in radical honesty and openness, whatever comes in honesty, we just see it and we meet it. Wow, I feel triggered right now. There's some anger here right now. And when we are allowed, when we know that we're allowed to feel what we feel, we're allowed to feel angry, we're allowed to feel sad, we're allowed to feel anxious, we're allowed to feel what we feel. And again, maybe most likely in the young life we were mirrored to not feel all the fullness of what we feel. And so we're reschooling, we're being reschooled in love, we're being reschooled with all the things that really matter. How to be with yourself, how to be with yourself when you're feeling everything that you feel, that you're allowed to feel everything that you feel. It's safe to feel everything that you feel. And even more deeply, it's absolutely essential that you feel everything you feel so that you're digesting life as it comes. And so you're not accumulating and hoarding pent-up old emotions that will present as physical discordance and pain. It's so obvious when we see it in the light. And yet, of course, there can be like a build-up in the sense of the body and the physicality, because we've lived the life in these ways, these learned habitual protective ways where we've kept things down, we've suppressed and we've repressed. And there's an impact to that, and we know the impact because it appears as a messenger. And then the invitation is not to make it wrong, but to realize, wow, this is coming forward with the possibility of digesting this, of truly bringing this to love, whatever it is, right? Whether it's pain or disease or whatever kind of imbalance, it's an invitation to receive it, to receive yourself more deeply, to meet a part of yourself that you've pushed away, innocently pushed away, and to make a reconciliation in the heart with these parts of yourself. And then it's the seeing that the whole of life is the same graced opportunity to digest and purify and cleanse the lived experience, and to really allow that cleansing to not be conceptual, right? Because when that cleansing becomes conceptual, it will usually join in with the great imbalance towards the masculine, and it will be too strong. It will try to overpower. It will turn the the lived experience and into like a battlefield of trying to annihilate everything that is toxic here, and it will be too strong, and it will overpower the grace and glory and simplicity of the natural intelligence. So just as these words come, you just notice little threads of recognition. You just feel the resonance. And if you don't, you just let it go, right? But the nervous system, the digestive system on the physicality is all one system of consciousness. All of our systems are, of course, conscious systems, and everything working and flowing is all about life working and flowing. We speak sometimes about the breath, and we invite taking some gentle, long, slow, deep breaths and releasing the the psychological holding that can be in the breath, in breathing. That so often if we're in the fear frequency, we don't breathe fully. And so the invitation is, and you can follow along if it feels alive and true, you can take some long, slow, gentle, deep breaths right now. And as you breathe right into the base of the lungs, the belly expands, and it's natural. So the belly expands, but it's to feel like an expansion that goes forwards, but also goes sideways and backwards. So as if you're breathing into the side body and back body at the base of the lungs, and then at the level of the chest, you're breathing into the front body, the side body and the back body. And as this kind of exploration happens, many of us are used to this by now, but still as we explore it, it can feel very tight because we're not used to really taking full breaths, or let's say free breaths. There's just so many dimensions where we're not used to being free. Breathing in through the nose and breathing either out through the nose or out through the mouth. Again, we can be so blocked up that we actually breathe through the mouth. Or we can be habituated to breathe through the mouth. And then again, we're not actually using the fullness of the purification system that we're wired for, because breathing through the nose is actually the purification system. It filters and it slows the breath. Breathing is gentle and smooth and slow. As we start to explore and we really breathe into the base of the lungs, and we breathe into the center through the chest and open through the side body and back body, we then come to breathe into the top of the lungs, and so few beings really breathe into the top of the lungs. So again, there can be like a stagnation and a tightness. So we breathe into the top of the lungs, and as we breathe into the top of the lungs, we realize that there's a capacity that comes into the base of the neck and into the back body and the collarbones and the shoulders almost. But we never want to push or strain, or it should never feel uncomfortable. It should feel very, very gentle. But just in your own spacious sitting, just to explore, just freeing the breath, freeing the psychological holding of the breath pattern. And again, that breathing pattern can be since childhood. Often it's kind of an unconscious holding of the breath, a shallow and unconscious holding of the breath. And it might feel like, well, that doesn't really feel that important, but all of these layers of releasing the stagnation and the ways that we hold ourselves tight and bound, it's actually incredibly profound to know that you can actually use breathing, pranayama, to open to the infinite boundless field. You can actually awaken through the use of the breath. By freeing the breath and exploring the breath, can actually really fully open, and it's incredibly, incredibly profound. Because as we explore the breath in that way, we're exploring the way that light and life animates the body. We're actually, we could say, as we take a deep breath in, before the breath turns around, naturally turns around, there's a little pause, a micro pause, and that micro pause is the opening to infinity. We experience infinity. And as the exhalation happens, when the breath is healthy, we just stop. There's a natural pause before the next inhalation. We're used to breathing all this kind of fast and discordant breath. But when the breath is healthy, we exhale, and then there's just a natural pause. And again, that natural pause is an opening to infinity. And then the breath comes again, And at the top of the breath, just as the breath is turning around, there's an opening to infinity. It's very profound and very subtle. And so we overlook it. We overlook it. When we open to the infinite in between the breathing, we're opening to bliss. We actually start to observe it and really be present with it. You'll feel the infinite unboundedness. You'll feel the ocean of nectarine bliss. And so it's so deeply nourishing just to breathe gently, slowly, and naturally, deeply, not forcing the breath, not imposing upon the breath, but just being so present with the breath. It was one of the actual prime techniques that Anandamayi Ma used to give, that she used to just invite people just to watch the breath. I've heard people say, well, I really like Anandamayi Ma, but, well, her techniques for awakening don't really, they're a bit shallow. Oh, the mind that thinks it knows it all, right? The thing is that the instruction is so simple. It's just too simple for the mind that wants complexity, right? The mind wants like an A to Z, whereas really it's just be here now, right? And so to watch the breath brings us to presence, to breathe gently and to release the psychological holding from the breath. It actually opens to what could be called a Vasi breath. It actually opens an opening that we don't even actually know that we have, and it's not used. And it opens an opening, which is how a being can rest in samadhi and not be breathing. Like it's the immortal nature. It's the secret of the Siddhas, right? To open the internal breath, the internal breath of life, right? To be fully sustained when there's absolutely no sign of life, right? So to decondition the breathing, and in a way, just to start with, it's really just about breathing long and slow and deep and gentle and releasing the psychological holding. And of course, if it's your thing, yogic pranayama is beautiful, but it's not to take it on as a project that suddenly again moves into that imbalance of power that imposes. So much in our lives is about receptivity and openness and yielding and softening and really allowing the embodiment of the divine feminine, of the mother, while at the same time creating a balance of, instead of being pushed around by ideas of power and strength, embodying an inner strength where we know that we're resilient and whole because we're resourced in God and the glory. And that's the embodiment of the divine masculine. To embody the divine masculine is to recognize that you don't need to be saved or rescued on the outside, that you are strong and powerful in the knowledge of the self, the pure awareness, the pure self, the profound frequency of the Shiv is that inner strength. But it's an inner strength that is gentle. It's powerful but gentle. And then the sense of the embodiment of the mother, of the divine feminine, is that willingness to yield and to really feel and receive life and ourselves in the moment, to open to the mystical and the wildness and the freedom and the softness and the tenderness, and to really feel that balance of like an inner strength and yet a total yielding. so that we open to that union in the heart, that sense of the absolute union of the Shiva and the Shakti in the heart, in a flow of surrender, in a flow of devotion, a flow of pure devotion. And then naturally we find that we arrive in a field of presence, a field of light, because we're soft and yielding. And then the breath is just gentle and slow and natural. As the breath quietens, the mind quietens, right? That's why Ananda Mahima invited beings in her company to watch the breath, because the breath is a reflection of the mind. So that's why we speak of releasing the psychological holding of the breathing pattern, because we're freeing the breathing to be a divine flow of intelligence that's animating the form and bringing the prana, the vitality, and the intelligence, light of life into the body, and that it's not getting blocked by all of the systems not functioning properly, that the actual light and the knowing and the intelligence is entering on the breath. It's the light and intelligence of who we are. That we breathe in the wisdom light, we breathe in God, we breathe in the glory. And when that can move unimpeded, as it does in a little baby, right? It just shines radiantly because it's just moving and flowing. And so we allow God to appear and take up residence in the heart. We recognize the light coming in and just moving and flowing as a seeming physical body of systems. But we start in this process that we're speaking here to refine the sense of the density and the toxicity of the physical to a light body, a subtle body. We start to refine the whole sense of living, and the natural intelligence creates a light body. It's trying to create a light body. It's trying to refine the light body and the apparatus for embodying the light and knowing the light, truly being a living flow of intelligence. And so as these words are coming, on many levels they are being received. And of course the mind hears the words and it will recognize certain things. But on a deeper level of the intelligence, start to notice how you are recognizing yourself in a finer way as a body of light, as a being of light, as a being of intelligence and wisdom. And that you're so much more multidimensionally than me and the physical body and my systems and my illnesses and my aches and my pains and my story and my thoughts, that we're so much more multidimensionally. The physical is like the fruit, we could say. It's an expression of the resonance of our multidimensional field. And so the more that we refine multidimensionally, the rejuvenation and rasa essence of our physicality is also revitalized and restored. And it's totally possible for anything to heal and be reorganized. And sometimes it will, and sometimes it won't. And we really come to the recognition that it doesn't really matter, because the intelligence is moving in a way that is exactly right and perfect. And sometimes, of course, there will be karmas that will be associated with body, physical disorder, because these are the things that we have to live through, and will bring surrender and will bring a deepening of the knowing of who and what we are. And it's all about receiving it all multidimensionally, just in this moment, just receiving the field of yourself, right? We're opening here the subtle sense of just noticing, being awake and aware to the field of yourself multidimensionally. That you start to be able to sense, and it's not like an informational sensing of, oh, I can feel this layer, this layer, this layer, but you just start to be able to sense more of a fullness and more subtlety, and you might feel different dimensions. You will open intelligently exactly as you are wired to, but ultimately it's about being the big wide open space and the awareness that can feel and sense. And as the recalibrations are happening, that gets more and more subtle. The subtle sensing allows us to be more yielding and receptive. And what are we yielding and receiving? We're yielding to life, and we're receiving the glory of God and the glory of the fullness of what we are, right? We're receiving the fullness of the transmission field of light and opening to the wisdom light that is moving everything. So as the words are coming here, the cleansing, the purifying is happening in real time, here now. The transmission of light is moving and the purifying and refinement is happening. The upgrades are happening right now. The way of the speaking here as an infusion is infusing the whole system in the light transmission field. And as there's an attunement, the upgrades are happening. The field of transmission is always at work. And yet there are moments as we gather and deepen that is amplified and the field is more activated and flowing. And so this is what is happening now, is there are activations and deepenings happening. And it's just to receive and just notice, just be the awareness that is watching. Just to feel the stillness and the silence of being the open field. So everything is conspiring to free us. The whole play of life is an intelligence that is here to free us, to bring online greater capacities, and to allow the heart sankalpa to really be the lived expression of the life through refinement and deepening, and that the means for this is the living of life itself. To live life in this openness and receptivity, in a softness, in the frequency field of love, of the glory, and to then have the capacity and power and knowing of this capacity and power to transmute everything that feels discordant and like a fear and stress, to transmute it all through the nervous system, to digest it, to digest life, and so fully digest it that it leaves no toxic residue, that we stop projecting and complaining and gossiping, finger pointing, and we realize that everything that's happening on the surface of life is somehow a reflection or a mirror for us. That when we really look at the qualities of what is bugging us in the life, we will most generally find that we, somewhere in our laws of nature, have the same qualities. Even if they are protections and conditionings, we will find somewhere in our functioning that we can recognize. And it's about receiving ourselves in those ways. It's not quite as simple as what you see you are. It can be what you see and what it's making you feel you are, right? It's more subtle. So we speak about this a lot. So we have that in awareness that it's about bringing forward the feelings and sensations, bringing forward what would otherwise not get to surface. And life is attempting to surface everything. And sometimes it sets up pretty complex situations in order for the dominoes to fall and eventually surface something, right? It's quite miraculous to take a look at the trajectory of the life and to see how the wisdom has been playing to bring forward exactly what you need to experience, and that if you didn't go through A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blah, 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 you wouldn't get to X, right? And X, of course, is where that releasing happens. And so there's a magic to life. And the more that we open to see that by not projecting and blaming, but by truly digesting and fully receiving, we actually find the resolution of life is in the heart, the resolution of everything. And as that resolution in the heart truly comes, we discover a depth of forgiveness. And that a forgiveness, in a way, is forgiving ourselves. Or we could say forgiving God. We realize that what forgiveness is in truth is seeing clearly. Seeing clearly is where true forgiveness as a frequency is happening. That we recognize that it's all one, that it's all only ever been one. And how glorious, how miraculous, how magical this adventure of life is when we stop being caught in the whole complex of needing and wanting to be seen and trying to prove ourselves and projecting away from ourselves and creating a world out of our unconscious guilt and shame. When we actually are willing and courageous enough to feel and meet our unconscious guilt and shame, we actually start to collapse the projected world, the world that's created by the mind. We start to collapse the dream of separation. We start to collapse the illusion of division and limitation because we're willing to meet that unconscious guilt and shame is that deeply held sense that there's something wrong with me. And ultimately to really meet that feeling, to have the capacity, have the gall to meet that, right? Have to know that we have the capacity to meet what feels like the most dreadful. In a way, we're being refined and honed to recognize that we do have the capacity to stay absolutely present with the deepest, most seemingly unpalatable, unfixable frequency of our being. And we have the capacity to digest the bitterest pill of our human condition, that we have the capacity to take the bitterest pill that we may think would kill us, like our survival mechanism, our needs met structure, everything that kept us alive in our young life, that we have the capacity to face ourselves in that absolute fear of not making it through. And we have the capacity to realize that perfect love transmutes everything and can actually transmute the greatest poison into a bliss, nectar, right? And it's all about the frequency, that when we are open to this frequency of the glory, we know we have the power to transmute everything, everything. There's so much that we think is toxic, so much that we think we're sensitive to, right? We just live like, gluten-free is just a metaphorical representation of the fact that we're so allergic to life, right? We've become so allergic to not actually be able to tolerate life. And it translates as a world that looks like, gluten-free, dairy-free, this free, that free, just bonkers, right? I mean, I've been part of that bonkers movement, absolutely. Hands up, right? So, but what I've also been part of is an absolute reorganizing of the frequency field to realize that I'm not actually allergic to anything, not at all. That it's all to do with our frequency, right? And again, we just explore. And it's not, again, it's not about saying, well, everybody should do that. Nobody should actually needs to be gluten-free. It's not about that. It's about using wherever you feel like you can't tolerate life. How is that a part of you? How is that a part of you that is somehow been disconnected, right? And that's the magic, is we just open to it. I would never have believed it, the things that I've explored and what I've discovered. And I'm sure many of us have had the same experience, right? And so it's just an invitation to keep exploring anywhere that feels like there's some kind of holding back, a fear or a glass ceiling or expression of pain and challenge in the body, is always an opportunity to go deeper, always an opportunity. Any kind of resistance or opposition, that is where the light is hiding. That's where the rest of you, that's where the rest of your wholeness is hiding. And so it's about digesting, being able to digest what you find utterly unpalatable and you believe is unfixable, and your mind tells you it's not possible for that to get better, for that to be different. Even if it's like, that's just the way that it's always been. Like, I'm wired like that, I'm made like that, I have this core dysfunction. It's like anything can be shifted. And it's not to hold it as belief, and it's not to be attached to outcome. It's to use everything as a possibility of exploration. And it's also not to measure like, oh, well, if it doesn't get better, then that means I'm not fully exploring it, because your relationship with it will change it, and just will change the whole living. Even if there's some kind of, seeming body issue that doesn't maybe fully heal according to the mind's idea, the healing happens at the frequency level that you're in relationship with it, right? So it's about exploring, it's about the adventure, it's about recognizing that all of life is offering us these myriad of opportunities to meet ourselves more deeply and to let it be fun and joyful and an adventure, a great curiosity, and to be ready for the awe and wonder that comes as we open beyond what we have been holding ourselves to believe. Yeah. When we open ourselves to the field of transmission, it's a field of light intelligence that's constantly moving and flowing in the knowing of itself to upgrade and reveal more light, more love at every point of the infinite field. So the intelligence that we're made of is moving to reveal more light, more love, more capacity, more grace, and that we move as this field of light and love and blessing. And what we mean by that is that as we move in life, that we are a field that's constantly just welcoming everything, everyone. We're seeing. We're the seer and the welcomer of life. And we don't have to announce ourselves. Doo-doo-doo, here I come. I am the field of light, right? Not so much, right? Not so much. We're just moving like secret agents. We're moving as secret agents, and we're watching, and we're revealing, and we're noticing what's happening in the nervous system, and we're transmuting it. And we realize that we have this capacity to shift the whole perspective of living life, of seeing life, of being with companions and family, all of it. We have the capacity to move through all of it. And there's plenty of material left, right? But it becomes exciting. It's like, oh, wow, family Christmas, what a great opportunity, right? To just live this frequency of the Christ light in the true Christ revelation, to recognize that, yes, Christ was the firstborn, and Christ is showing us the way, and that as we access the Christ light in the heart, that we enter that revelation of the glory of God. We let God take up residence in the heart, and then we find out, I wonder what family Christmas will be like now, right? What an interesting possibility to just shift the perspective to adventure and joy and wonder, and just to be open to see and experience as a unified field. And so in a way, to undivide the life is to just notice every moment of division and limitation and resistance and opposition, complaining, right? And just shift that in the moment to notice, oh, there's an opportunity. And just to receive that frequency field, and then follow the threads of insight and wonder to free the discordance in the field. And it's always more about welcoming the atmosphere of the feeling sensing field, just as we've been opening to this morning, just opening to just more of that multi-dimensional, like all of this, oh, discordance comes in, oh, a different feeling sensation. And just being really open to the whole atmosphere of your lived experience as a transmission field that's welcoming and transmuting and reorganizing, right? It's never so much about the details or wanting the insight to come or making it mean something or understanding. That's, of course, the mind's wanting, because it's familiar, right? What we're speaking of is bringing the power back and not needing the details and the process. And yet, of course, receiving and enjoying the insight and seeing the map and the dots join, but not seeking for that, right? Receiving it, receiving the grace. And of course, the essential part of this too is as we open to the field of silent presence and being, this field of light and transmission, we're opening to the glory of God. We're opening to the divine. We're opening to the wholeness and the innocence of our own true nature. And here there's the most incredible support and guidance and grace that we never need to know because the glory knows. We never need to know with the mind because the intelligence is a field of knowing, of wisdom. And it's about attuning with the wisdom and being this field of intelligence. And so again, returning the power to the source. We feel powerful when the power is returned to the source because we're receiving from that source. We're deeply nourished here, truly nourished, and we're nourished on the level that is entirely palatable and profoundly nourishing, multidimensionally, that we're sipping the sweetness and the nectar of bliss light. We're sipping the sweet nectar of the divine, of the resonant remembrance of what we belong to. And in that, we're activating the knowing of the heart, that we are children of the glory of God, and that we're absolutely wired to fall deeply into the remembrance of our belonging and to be an instrument of grace, to allow that grace light to take up residence in the heart and flow through us to the surface of life, to manifest the frequency field of the divine reality on the surface of life, to touch all of our human brothers and sisters. That we are in God and God is in us. That to love God, to be in the love of God, is to be in the love of God, and we don't know the direction. We dissolve. It's like following the longing and realizing that just to meet the longing of the heart is to discover the fulfillment of the longing. To be in the love of God is to receive the love of God. That we disappear, we dissolve into the field of grace and wonder.